Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is Mi'kmaq First Nations, belonging to a community called Eskasoni, but currently resides in Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia. He is a direct descendant of the last hereditary Grand Chief, John Denny Jr. He is a motivational speaker, a champion of diversity, and a role model for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. He is a member of a long list of committees, including Human Rights Facilitator and Aboriginal Perceptions Facilitator called Lu Nu Way for Department of Justice. He is a member of the Treaty Education Speakers Bureau and is a new member of the Union of Nova Scotia Indians Justice Committee representative for the Tripartite Forum. He is a champion arm wrestler who placed 8th in the heavyweight division worlds and was an associate producer and consultant for the television series called Arm Nation. He has received 2 Minister of Justice awards, exceptional contributions to corrections, and a limited edition pin from the House of Commons for his commitment and support to Indigenous people and youth. He speaks in high schools, universities, and colleges. He goes around and shares his culture, knowledge, and wisdom to Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities throughout the Atlantic provinces. Welcome to the show, my friend, Trevor Sanipass.
Thank you, Matt.
What's up, dude? That's a long bio, but you're doing a lot, man.
Yes, I am, and really appreciate it. I really am honored, actually. I'm really excited for being here. Being on your show.
Yeah, man. Well, we met when I came down to Nova Scotia. David, your cousin, right? You cousins?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
he was doing some star teaching. So, I'm super interested in what he's doing. I was graciously put up at your house and got to meet your amazing family. We had an arm wrestling contest downstairs, which I lost very easily.
It's time.
And since then, I've been watching so much arm wrestling, but it was really amazing to learn more about you and how much you're actually doing. You're going around speaking at schools, you're sharing your culture, you're very motivational for the youth. You do a lot of really great things for the youth, and we had talked about that, just being, what can we do for the youth? And yeah, man, so I'm going to stop talking and let you share a little bit about yourself. Talk a little bit about your background and all the amazing things you're up to today.
Okay, great. And again, thank you, Matt. First of all, I want to say congratulations on your milestone. That's phenomenal, man. Like, really, that's huge. That's almost like a million YouTube views, to my understanding. And I'm just trying to remember. There was like 2 million.
I just reached 2 million downloads, which is good for me because my podcasts are longer. So the listen minutes are like
2 million downloads. Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And the hope too, man, the hope, like I said, and I wanted to share the stories and the wisdom of people doing something good, doing something positive, talking about positive things, bridging gaps, doing all that. So, you're episode 301, man. So it's a privilege to have you here.
301. Yes.
Yeah, man.
And again, Matt, thank you. Congratulations. It's a total honor to be here. And then, you were here. As I noted before you left, you're always welcome. Of course, Dave, love Dave. He's a phenomenal person. And so is Jacqueline. And it was great to have like everyone, we did arm wrestle. I'm surprised you said I bet you, even though yes I did, but I was going to say that it was a tie, but it was fun. It was definitely great fun, and as you know, that there's a lot of technique and in arm wrestling. There's like a lot more. But to answer your question, like what do I do? Share some of the things that I do, and I am a member of a long list of committees. I am the facilitator for human rights. This is for Department of Justice, and Indigenous perceptions called Illinois. It's a
Yeah.
2-day training.
Thanks for that. I was going to get you to correct that. As I said, I was like, oh man, I should have did something.
But yeah, it is on the way. It is a 2-day training course. Totally love it. It's just sharing the culture. Sharing the culture, the spiritual and traditional practices of the Mi'kmaq to the staff of the Department of Justice. We have correctional officers and probation officers. So along with that, I know you mentioned some of the things that I do. I do arm wrestle. I've been arm wrestling for I was speaking with a friend of mine, Kate Breton. We were just thinking about the time. I'm 43, and it was I was a lot earlier, at the younger age when I started arm wrestling, but in the community. But I guess, going around the circuit, I was around 15 or 16. I say 16 years old. So it was over about 25 years for sure, arm wrestling, because I picked it up from my brothers. I had three brothers, but I have two now. And my father, of course, he was great at, he was a coach. He was a coach in baseball, basketball, and even arm wrestling. So anyway, I picked it up from my brothers. I'm like 6'1" and 235 pounds. But I was the runt in the family. My brother Dave and Steve. Steve had a nickname too, like they called him Big Guy, actually. And they were really well known in the community and surrounding communities, and even in the arm wrestling community. So I got to know a lot of the legends in arm wrestling that are still competing today. They're really strong. So I got to meet these guys when I was younger. And then my role models, of course, being my family, looking up my father, but then my brothers as well, John, David, and Steve. They were all athletic. They were powerlifters, and were arm wrestling champions. And I really wanted to be like my brother, like all of them actually. But it was David. David, he's a little bit older than me. David was 17 when he competed. And the thing with us, we have weights back at home, like over my mom's place. So we have weights, the bench and the curling bars and all the works. We'll get the newspaper literally like 2 days, the upcoming events, and then we'll see arm wrestling. I still remember this when I was young, and I go, oh wow, great! Like arm wrestling's coming to this in David's part. It was in Center to 100, and we worked out. I still remember that. We all work out, even the morning before the event. And that's a big no-no, really. You can't really, you can't really work out at least several days before the event. You want to get your arms all rested and everything. And that's what that's why I instruct or teach the youth right now today. Stay away from weights. Like, just chill, really, right? But anyway, we were working out the very morning, and then we go compete. Or in that case, it was them. But David got third. I'm pretty sure he got third. And the part that I really liked about this particular story is I read about him in the paper. And at that time, like even right now, and I'll get to this as we go with this episode. Even sharing the culture, you didn't really hear much about the indigenous culture anywhere, really. And it's not just like in the last 10 years. There's this shift, right? Even David himself, he's from Maine. You don't really hear much about the Mi'kmaq people. And this is what he was telling me in Maine. So he was quite surprised when he was with us for several days in Halifax. And he'll point it out, like they've been talking about the Mi'kmaq on the news a lot, and good things. And said that was kind of it was different for him. And I told him, it wasn't always like that either, right? I know, right now, I do go around and I do talks about the culture, not just with work, but outside of work as well. I go around to schools, as you mentioned, universities, colleges, business, agencies, government at all levels, municipal, provincial, and federal. And I get to share my culture. I'm also part of the speakers bureau as part of treaty education, which is fantastic. Anyway, sorry, I'm drifting. Now, going back to my brother, seeing him in the newspaper, he was flexing. I still remember like how he flexing. He was 17. And he was competing with the best, like in, I think it was the Atlantic Canadian Championships, and he was flexing. And in the newspaper, the headline was "Strong Arm Tactics," and I was so like, seeing somebody that that you recognize in the newspaper, I was like, and especially he's my brother. I was like, oh wow. And of course, right? That's when I really hit the gym myself. Like, and I was anyway, but I really was focused on arm wrestling, getting to know the techniques and stuff like that. And much like anything else, table time is important. You can't become a great hockey player if you don't, practice and doing some, skating around the ice. And that's just like arm wrestling. You need table time. So you can work out, which works, but you need table time. And with different variety of people, it definitely helps. So you helped when I did arm wrestling.
I helped by getting my butt kicked. I was telling you too, I was like, I'm actually pretty good at arm wrestling. I wish we had a few more days so I could learn technique, but I've only lost like actually a few times in my life. And it was like going against a wall. Immediately when I tried to like move my arm, I knew that there was no chance. It's like, I'm not moving this at all. I've never felt that before. It's interesting. But what's fascinating about you that I realized about getting 8th in the world is that you did it at heavyweight, which people are going at like 260 plus pounds. You're a big boy, but like these guys are massive. And since our time, I got super interested in arm wrestling. So I've been watching all the arm wrestling matches and things like that. I was like, holy crap, like being able to take out those guys are incredible. So that's like, top in the world at a skill, which is really amazing. And I love how you're using that and you're bringing it to the youth culture and you're using it as an opportunity to like, use sport, use arm wrestling for something positive, something good, and to empower people. So all of that is just awesome.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. The beauty of that is going to the Worlds. That was my first Worlds. I was extremely excited, of course. The best part is we were filming the nationals because of my as you know, and I'll share it actually. I was the associate producer of a television series called Arm Nation. It was my idea. I put it together, right? And again, it was just the love of arm wrestling. And we were practicing in Sackville. I love telling stories, and I could get to the point, but I really want to build it up in some ways. And so that's.
I have noticed you're a good storyteller, and also I don't know how to say not a bull crapper, but like you can't be trusted all the time with certain things.
Well, yeah,
I think you played like 2 pranks on me within like probably an hour. It's like, what's happening?
All in good fun. All in good fun.
Yes.
The majority of the time, yes, I do tell the truth. I'm a truth teller, but I do love telling stories. We were practicing in Sackville, so I got to mention my club in Sackville. They're really great guys and gals, top notch. Best actually in the country arm wrestlers, and we have young and old, and the young ones are really strong. But anyway, I was in Sackville. This was several years ago. I was in Sackville, and we had Devin Larad, so I got to mention him as well. Phenomenal guy, phenomenal. And we were talking about the television series that was on HBO. I think it was, I don't think I know. It's called Game of Arms. And we were just talking about it. And we were hoping there was a talk amongst us arm wrestlers. Like we're hoping that, maybe to be on that show someday. Obviously, Devin is a world-class athlete. He's like the best in the world. And we know that obviously he's going to get it, right? Because everybody knows Devin. And but I still recall, speaking to the other arm wrestlers and saying like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we get to be on the show?" And then I thought of it like, you know what? Like I like to make things happen, right? And I just can't sit down and sit back and not do anything. And I was like, why don't we just like come up with our own show, right? I remember I think it was Devin, actually. I mentioned, like, why don't we just, like, I put it together? And he said, like, put it together and I'll, like, back you 100%. I went home that night. I'm a, like, fast typer. I went home that night and my ideas were just, like, they were just going, and I sat down, and I think it was like 5 or 6 pages. Like, it was, like, and I mean, it's not much. It was 5 or 6 pages. It was a proposal of this television series, and it was called True. Actually, I still remember. It took me a bit to figure out the title, and then I got it. It was called True North Strong, and that was it. True North Strong. And I was like, yeah, I love this. I love this idea. True North Strong. And what it was at that time, it was clubs. This was my idea. Of course, it changed. It was clubs versus clubs. So we have our Sackville Club, and there's a Valley Club, and there's one in Cape Breton called the Golden Arms. And I actually, a good friend of mine, that's his club. And of course, my brother's in Eskasoni. He has, like, a little club of Aboriginal youth, or Indigenous youth. And so I was thinking, like, okay, club versus club. And then maybe we'll form, out of this clubs in Nova Scotia, we'll form one good team, like, ideally from one in each club. This was my story, or before it got changed. One person, maybe, or two from each club, and that's like team, say, Nova Scotia, and then we'll the way I did it was there's the clubs in PEI as well. So I said, well, they'll form their team. In New Brunswick as well, they'll form their team. And then we'll have, like, a face-off of these 3 teams in the Atlantic province. And out of these 3 teams, the best, or the winners, would represent Team Atlantic. And then the other teams in Ontario or Manitoba would do the same. And then, like, anyway, that was my idea. And I sent it off. I got a phone call from the person, and I forgot his name. I'm so sorry. But he worked with YTV, and he loved it. And he said that he's working on a project right now, but if I'm going to wait, like, about 6 or 8 months, like, he's willing to, like, work on this project, because he really loved the idea. But then he goes, well, I do have a friend named David Finch from Montreal, who specializes in documentaries. I said, this may be the route that you want to go. And I, like, I was surprised to get a phone call. and the other one is, like, he was interested in it. And then they go, yeah, sure, like, why not? Like, let's do this. And then, anyway, I'll just fast forward it. So David and I had many phone calls, and his wife Maureen, beautiful people. Many phone calls, Skypes. And then we said, okay, let's do this. And of course, they changed it. My 5 pages or 6 pages proposal ended up looking like I'm looking around. I don't know why I'm looking around. Like a telephone book. It was thick. Like, because I don't know anything about TV or film. I work for the Department of Justice, right? And then I had an idea, and I put it together, and here you go. So anyway, they put it together, like, right professionally and stuff, and they sent it to several broadcasters. I think there was 5, and out of those 5, 3 jumped at it. And out of those 3, it was one of them, APTN, who loved them, actually. APTN loved it. I said, wow. Instead of, like, making it like a 1 hour, an hour and a half documentary, let's do the series. And we're like, what? Let's do the series. And of course, we're like, absolutely, let's do this. So my 1 hour documentary became like a 13 half-hour series. And then it was about Indigenous arm wrestlers across Canada. And I was one of the featured ones. They followed me around with a few of my friends from Eskasoni. Bussin' Mike Doucette's one of them, and Mark McPhail's the other. But we have a lot of strong Indigenous arm wrestlers from across the continent, really. And it was really great to, for me anyway, to include the Indigenous and non-Indigenous arm wrestlers. Even though it was APTN and they wanted Indigenous arm wrestlers, I was like, I got my other community arm wrestlers from Sackville. So I want them included as well. Mark McPhail is a good friend of ours, a family friend. Like, he's non-Indigenous. I said, I really want him included as well. So they did, right? And it was just a real, like, everything was real. Nothing was scripted. And like that's the reason the story is so long. I really wanted to be real, genuine. Like I had my full-time job. A lot of these arm wrestlers were the same. A lot of them were coming out of retirement from injuries, single moms. Like they were fantastic. Because this was real. And how difficult it is just to train or even to travel to a tournament. Anyway, I loved how they filmed it and captured the realness, I guess. And then, now I'm coming to this part. The Nationals. So we filmed the Nationals. So I ran for politics. I didn't win, but I won in many ways. I inspired many, and I'm glad about that, actually. I'm really, because, I guess I inspired a lot of people, indigenous, non-indigenous people, to run for politics. And I always encourage that, right? Get involved, vote for whatever party that you choose. It doesn't matter. Just be involved and associate or align yourself with the candidate or party that best represents your needs or the community needs. Anyway, I didn't win, but they focused on my run. And when I didn't win, I had literally 2 weeks. And they asked me, so what are you going to do? Well, we have the Nationals coming. And I had no plans then to compete. I said, well, we have the Nationals coming. I'm going to start training by 2 weeks. Come on. Usually not enough. And then, okay, I'm going to focus on I went from politics and jump right into arm wrestling. And I started doing some light training, really a week, because you don't really want to do anything at least several days before a big competition, especially the national.
It's a natural progression, politics into arm wrestling championships. It's just what people are doing these days. It's the obvious next choice.
Yeah, I know. I got the name, the arm wrestling politician. It stuck with me for a bit, actually. And the Nationals, and I got second. Like, it was the super heavyweights. It was the big guys in Canada. And I came in second. A good friend of mine, Rob McNamara, all props to him. It was gold. He won gold, and I'm glad he got gold. He deserved it. He's a multiple Canadian champion, and it was just returning from a retirement, so to speak, and he was just coming back, and he cleared it. And well, of course, I got second, so he got gold, and I got silver. And at that time, I wasn't sure, because I never went to the Worlds, right? So they approached me and said, hey, you got silver, and that qualify you to go to the Worlds. Would you be interested? And it just, what? I've been arm wrestling as I mentioned, about 25 years. Maybe it was brought up to me when I was younger, but I didn't really grasp it. So I was quite surprised. I was like, oh wow, Worlds, absolutely! I would love to go. So it was in Budapest. So there was about 20 of us. Traveled. Chantel went with us as well. We went. It was beautiful, and everybody was talking about the city. You're going to architect, you're going to love it. And I wasn't really into architecture or anything. I do love culture. I love learning. And when I went, it was the very first day. We're walking in the street in Budapest, and everything was just so old. The culture was so rich, and I'm looking around and said, wow, I took pictures, many pictures. It was just leading up to the building. And I was just so fascinated with everything. Anyway, here I am again. And then we were there for a week, but we explored, Chantel made this top 10 list, and we saw even then some, we saw everything. We did our weigh-ins. We did the registration on day one. Day two was the team photos, and then we have from afternoon on. So we explored the city, and I didn't get to compete until 4 or 5 days after. And I still recall going into my weight class, which was a super heavyweight. I thought okay, my arms are going to get ripped. I was the lightest one in the class. I was exactly 243 pounds, and it was 242 pounds and over. And I'm okay.
So lost that 1 pound.
I could have easily, but what happened was there was 2 other people from Canada that were in the lighter class, and there's only 2. So I couldn't because they were there. right? So I end up like trying to gain as much as I can. Actually, I was 245 because I gained like 3 pounds, purposely trying to be heavier. But anyway, I was the lightest one, and the average was like about 300 pounds and over, and there were about 6'5" and over.
Jeez.
So yeah, I know. But yeah, I came 8. My thing was there was like about 22 of us. There was like about 1,500 competitors. There's about 1,500 competitors. The energy was so insane. We all loved the sport, right? You see other arm wrestlers from different countries, and the music is playing. It's almost like a UFC setting, like a big stage. There's 8 arm wrestling tables, and there's like 2 referees in each one, 2 big jumbo screens on each side, and like, oh my God, like the music's playing, but we all have that love and passion for it. So we're all like, wow, even though we're competitive, we're competition, but we're all like, wow, like, the energy was so great. And then I competed. There was like about 22 in our class. And again, these are the best in the world. And I really didn't want to like finish last. That was my thing. I didn't want to finish last at all. Like I said, like, okay, even if I win one, like I'll be good. I didn't expect to win several. I mean, I really didn't. And like, I wasn't defeating myself when I started, because that's one of the things I teach, right? Like, or when I do my presentations, or when I'm engaging with youth. And thank you for mentioning that when you started off. Yeah, I do go around communities and doing motivational talks or inspiring them. But I also, I wasn't defeating myself in that way. I just saw these monsters from Russia and Poland, Germany, and was like, oh boy, right? So I gave it all I got, of course. So, we're like, I'm in Budapest. I'm pretty sure I was the only Indigenous person competing with the best in the world, and I certainly didn't want to like go like last. I was really aiming for gold. And when I won a couple, then of course I lost some as well. But when it was over, and I'll share one story actually before about, but actually I'll share it right now. Do we got time? Okay, so it'll be quick. Now this is leading up to that, like 8. Yeah. What happened was I was arm wrestling, and I think it was the guy from Poland, or I'm not even entirely sure right now. But when I'm doing my talks, I say Poland or Russia. Anyway, I was going, and we're both locked in the hook. And all I think of is, and again, being the only Indigenous person here with a lot of like people, I'm like holding off, and okay, now I'm not only representing like Nova Scotia, like I'm like I'm wearing a Canadian shirt, like this is for Canada. And I was really holding, like, trying to go. But really, what really worked, and this is what I share with the youth, Indigenous, non-Indigenous actually, but more so with the Indigenous youth. I go like, and I hold, and I like, really, really give it up and position myself, right? And I'm really calm, and I really don't want to lose because we're both locked in. And all I can think of was like, okay, you're Indigenous, you're Mi'kmaq, come on. And then off I went, and I won. Like I won. And of course, this next match I lost. And then when I went down, somebody said, hey, you got 8th. And I remember turning around, there's this big screen behind me. And it shows like from the bottom, like the finisher, like from 22 or 21, and then 20, 19, 18, 17, like, it goes down the list. And then I was 8. So there were still 7 people left. I was like 8. I was like 8. Like, I mean, I was jumping with like joy. And I was like, wow, yes. I was hugging my teammate. And I was like 8. Because if you don't win first, second, or third, you want to be in the top 10. You want to be in the top 10. So you can claim, this is what was told to me. So you can claim that you're best in the world. You're top 10 in the world. So I have that. Like, I officially can say I'm the best. I'm the top 10 in the world for the super heavyweights. So that's my story.
Well, dude, it's pretty amazing. And like, yeah, your size is shocking that you did it for the super heavyweights, because after I got back from Nova Scotia, I just started watching arm wrestling videos like crazy. And so it's like this whole amazing world, and it's starting to explode. And like I kind of said, I like how you're using that opportunity. You seem to use all the time that you get an opportunity from whatever you're doing to support the youth and to share about the indigenous culture, the Mi'kmaq culture, and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that we could go with this, but I guess I'll kind of direct it that way. You know, I saw in the paper on Monday, you know, it's like Thanksgiving, but it was the first Indigenous Peoples Day, which makes sense because, you know, doing research and study in Canada and North America, it's like, yeah, Columbus discovered America. I was like, well, not really. There's got of people here first. And, you know, there's a whole history that's not being taught in Western education. And so when you're going around and you're talking to the youth, I guess the question is, what do you try to inspire with them? How is the youth culture there? I know that the youth culture around the world could use some help. I wrote a little thing on my Instagram last week about just giving youth better role models. Like, who do we have to look up to? Like, is it Katy Perry and, you know, rappers singing about, you know, acquiring more gold and booties and cars and whatever the case is? We need people sharing a real message, you know? So when you're speaking to them, what are you trying to share, and what is it that you want people to know about the Mi'kmaq culture when you're speaking to non-natives?
To be themselves, be proud, really, like be proud. Over the years, even myself, the culture, and I even mentioned earlier, it wasn't even like this like 10, 15 years ago. You know, I talk about my challenges and struggles living on reserve and even off reserve. You know, maneuver my way around the non-Indigenous society, I guess. You know, I've encountered a lot of discrimination and racism, but I had good teachers. Two of my parents being one of them, and then of course my siblings, and then my aunts and uncles, family, and then our community elders. You know, I have good teachings, and so I try to relay some of these messages that I received or some of the teachings that I got, and then share that with the youth. But mostly it's just being proud. Being proud is extremely important because we have a lot of traumas in our communities, the intergenerational traumas from colonization, from 60 schools, from the Indian residential schools, Indian day schools. My father was a survivor. He attended the schools when he was 6, and he escaped. I can't say he left. He escaped when he was 12 years old. He was beaten. He was abused at all levels, and there was like working working for the Department of Justice. I worked in a correctional center for about 9 years. When we had a lot of our brothers and sisters that were deeply affected from these schools, and a lot of the people right now we have our residential schools descendants. And just the effects, it was just so damaging to our people. We're still dealing with suicide and addictions and abuse, and we have people. We have a lot of great people in our communities, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, that are truly are genuine and kind people, that they're trying to help our people. And we know that there's a lot of healing still needs to be done, but luckily for myself, I had good teachers, and my father, he was an advocate for health and wellness, really, and I value that, and and one of the teachings that he stressed was respect, and so being an advocate for health and wellness, making proper life choices, what not to do, avoid the alcohol and drugs, live the red road, know your teachings. We have to, right now I'm just starting to embrace the spirituality on my end, the daily smudges. I do attend sweat lodges. And when I do go to and speak with youth, I do say, it's okay to say that you did this, because I use my experience. I have a good job right now, and I was brought up to not to boast or not to show off. and then I still and then that's that's great. But it took a bit for me to maneuver around government because a lot of the people, well, especially the leadership roles, they want a person that say, I did this, and brought up in a community setting where, we're a team. It took a bit for me to push that aside, like some of my teachings aside, so I could advance. I thought that was wrong. So I do say to the youth, it's okay, keep your teachings. I'm trying to change the government right now, or change the system from within. It's okay, keep your teachings. You don't have to do what I did. I had to push my teachings aside in order to, like I said, advance. And but it's okay to be proud. It's okay, to take on things. If you have a dream, go for it. If it means that you have to leave your community, well, be it. There's a lot of great people out there that will help you along the way. And I certainly had great teachers, Indigenous, non-Indigenous. I had excellent teachers, meaning not just my elders, but teachers as in schools. I had some, I remember this, like when I was in grade 9, because our schools was from kindergarten to grade 9. This was in Eskasoni. And from grade 10 to grade 12, you have to move out of the community and to go to a high school, which was in Sydney. It was like about 45 minutes away. And he told me, he told me, get involved. Like, don't be afraid, Trevor. Be involved. Get into council. Try out things. You're athletic, because I was in arm wrestling around that time. So you're very athletic. Join hockey. Join baseball. I did join rugby, actually, when I did go, and I met a lot of friends, because the teacher was non-Indigenous. He said that, right? Because in high school we had our own group, right? There was Indigenous students, and then there was like non-Indigenous students, and there was only really 2 groups, and then it was always like that. Maybe occasional, like a certain person would have a friend from the other group, but he that stuck with me, and I was like, oh. So when I got to high school, I was like, I'm actually going to do what he told me, and I'm actually going to do that, and again, I'm willing to learn, right? So I started, I went into a tryout, and of course I got in, and I got to know more like other people. I got to know more their stories, their backgrounds, and with me, right? And they were asking these questions. They didn't know anything about the Indigenous people. So because I saw this from my father as well, even though I just mentioned about this teacher, but my father was, he popularized that notion of community relations long before it was popular, because he was coaching our youth, and it was taken into the tournaments, in the non-Indigenous tournaments, but he was educating both. On both sides, because we were kind of like, I still remember, I was young. He was educating, like, okay, no, they're good, because we're all they're non-Indigenous. But anyway, so when I got to became friends with my teammates, it was on and off the field. I was like, wow, and I started introducing to more of my friends, and and I really like that, and that's just one. And where was I? You were asking me a question. Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Well, it's interesting because we're talking about the youth, right? And just from what I've seen, when I was in Whistler, I was teaching boxing at the youth center there, and this is a culture in Whistler where they have a lot, you know what I mean? It's a privileged culture, but even seeing where their minds are at that time and what they deal with, and watching them, just go through adolescence is a challenging time for a lot of people. So I can't imagine what it would be like for you growing up, or some, having these more challenging circumstances and feeling ostracized or whatever the case may be. It's a lot more challenging. Plus the whole history of it, you touched on a lot of really heavy topics, about the school system and surviving and escaping. You have to escape a school. Most people. I only really found out about this from David, and then Brian Francis, who I'm going to keep saying it again. I hope you're watching, Brian. Put your documentaries on YouTube, man, about the school systems and how absolutely awful they were. And so you're moving into like, this new way, right? And let's say this new culture. And it's almost like when you're talking about having to change your beliefs a little bit to advance over here, that's like almost like what a simulation is. It's like, don't even worry about like if you embody what your beliefs are, you're not going to make it over here. So you'll be put in such a challenging spot, and it'd be like, damn it, this is awful. And so we want to give the best opportunity to the youth, the best opportunity to youth of any nation. So what do you think, what can we do to empower Indigenous youth, or even youth in general now? What would they need? What would you like to see as far as like, whether it be support, whether it be programs, whether it be a philosophy or idea that people are just getting wrong, like to build a very strong foundation so they can begin to explore these new ideas in this growth in a way that they're allowed to like hold on to their traditional values?
We're getting there. We're almost there, I would say. We have a lot of great leaders. And I have to give credit to our leaders here in Nova Scotia. We have 13 communities in Nova Scotia. And all of these 13 communities have 13 great leaders. And Eskasoni, that's where I'm from, we have a really good chief, and his name is Denny. And he's phenomenal, actually. I have to give him that. Leroy Galuk. He's doing really great with the youth, actually. He's much like what I do right now, advocating health, wellness, making proper life choices, being active. And that's what he embodies. That's what he does. And he's doing this for his whole community. And he's been doing this. He's been elected chief for several terms already, and so he's doing really good, and people see that, and when people see that, they want to be like that, and that's what he's doing. So like, we have great leaders, and leaders, we have great community leaders. There's a lot of even youth that are young, educated, smart, traditional. So we have young elders who are educated. Like, I mean, that's insane. Like, it's not just in Eskasoni. It was like, it's throughout. And I really love that. Like, I really respect that. I really like, I mean, I just don't talk about my chief, Leroy. I talk about others. I forgot her name for a moment. Andrea Paul. Like about the environment. She's very passionate about the environment. She's educated. She's very smart. But I like these chiefs that are going that extra mile to help their community. And so going back to Leroy, people look up to him because what he does. And then again, he's connecting with youth, and he's a great hockey player too. And actually, he tried arm wrestling as well a few times, but he didn't arm wrestle this year. But he's a great guy. He's an excellent role model, and that's what I'm leading up to. We need more role models. We have great people in our communities. Elders are highly respected. Youth are growing up. Having these role models right in their communities. You mentioned earlier, Katy Perry, and celebrities are great, if they have a great message, or if they're using their popularity correctly and right. Because social media can be a great thing and can be a bad thing. Right now, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Twitter, for instance, I use Twitter at Sanipass. I tweet a lot about positivity, and that's who I am in real life, and that's how I usually tweet. Hashtag happiness, hashtag Mi'kmaq, like whatever. But I usually tweet anything about positivity. I'll tweet something about the culture. I'll tweet something about arm wrestling. I'll tweet something like anything good, anything positive. And I get a lot of positive feedback. It's usually engaging. I'll get retweets and likes, or but it's always engaging. And it's kind of funny. I don't have that many followers as you, but I have about 10,000. And it's funny in HRM when I'm walking, people do approach me, like say, "Hey, you're Trevor. I follow you on Trevor, like Twitter, man. Like, can we take a picture?" And no, I mean it's kind of funny for me saying this, but it happens a lot. But it's because usually they say, "I love your tweets. I love how you tweet about the culture. I didn't know anything about the Mi'kmaq culture." I'll tweet something like, "Okay, what year did I tweeted this before? What year did we as an Indigenous people get to vote? What year did we become Canadian citizens? What year did the residential school close?" Right? It was 1996 in Saskatchewan. 1956 we got to vote, became Canadian citizens. It was 1960 that we were granted the right to vote. The residential schools, we had one in Shubinagadi. We didn't have any in New Brunswick or PEI, but all the children from those provinces were taken to Shubinagadi here in Nova Scotia, my father being one of them. And yes, he did escape. He was pretty much tortured. There is a dark history that we must talk about and learn and then move on together. I did mention about treaty education and the importance of treaty education, and people don't know about our histories and treaties. And there's a part there's some dark histories, but we talk about it. But treaty education is we're all treaty people. It's your ancestors, my ancestors. We did we signed these treaties, and it's our responsibility. We do have great community leaders. Community leaders and elders and allies. Like Matt, you're doing a great thing. Here I am in your podcast. I really am truly grateful and thank you, because I know you're a very popular guy yourself, and so thank you for even giving me this platform to talk about who I am, who we are, what I do. Because I really truly love the culture, and in whatever I can, every opportunity I get, I share. It's education. It is important, and whether it's social media, tweeting, or in person, or even this, it's almost like planting seeds. I know you have a lot of viewers and that are seeing this, and that's important for me to just share some of my culture, who I am, the way we live, to people. Doing presentations. I've been doing a lot of presentations because in Nova Scotia, we celebrate Mi'kmaq History Month for the whole month of October. But I've been doing it, and a lot of other people has been doing it. We've been doing it yearly, and we do have educators, and we do have our elders. And we have our academics. It's everybody's taking part, and again, allies. We're all moving together towards reconciliation, right? So,
yeah, well, you said a lot there, and treaty education is something really fascinating. Brian Francis will share a lot on his Facebook. I find really fascinating, and I went and did law and security and basically law my second year, and it was really confusing, but what I learned was that it's like our birth certificate is basically a shipping container receipt, and there's a difference between natural law and legislative law. And when the Europeans come over, you look at this piece of land, nobody owns the land, right? And everybody in this taxation system, this government system, this whole thing, the money system, is all this made up thing. And so the Indigenous people are signing this original treaty, and it goes on and on and on. And basically the Canadian government, if I understand it correctly, we need Brian on to make sure, but they're kind of defaulting on all of those original treaties. It's like, if you go back, it's like you have not agreed to this by your own legislation, but this is still moved forward so far beyond what was originally intended or agreed upon when you look at those original treaties. And that's playing by their game of signing this grand illusion of paper and taxes and ownership and all the madness that goes with that. But that's a rabbit hole for me in my own space. What I wanted to, you can feel free to touch on that if you want, but what I wanted to ask, when you, and go ahead, but I'm going to ask this too. If you could share like any 1 to 3 or 5 pieces of knowledge with non-natives, you know, and if there's anything you'd want them to know about either Mi'kmaq culture or indigenous culture, what would you want them to know?
My things are always, when I do my presentation, is to ask in the audience, because I've done presentations as small as, say, 10 people, as large as 800 people. So I'm quite comfortable in speaking in small or even larger groups. Actually, larger the better. And I love interacting, I love engaging, I love asking questions too. I always ask is for people to be open-minded. And some of the 4 things I always ask is learn, act, engage, and participate. So there's 4 things I always emphasize, I guess. So learn, act, engage, and participate. Of course, being open-minded. So when I do my presentations, I know you mentioned about the treaties. You know, there was a part, yeah, like there was a treaty denial. Right now, like here in Nova Scotia, you know, there's some gray areas, but you know, we do celebrate Treaty Day. You know, we do celebrate Treaty Day in Nova Scotia, and it's every October 1st. So this past October 1st, which was on a Tuesday, it was like about 2 weeks ago. You know, we celebrated Treaty Day in Halifax, and it's a renewal of friendship, really, between 2 people, or between the government and First Nations people, and that's what it is. It's a peace and friendship treaty, and it officially kicks off Mi'kmaq History Month. But in the 1600s, you know, during contact, you know, our numbers and our land drastically, you know, lowered and decreased. In the 1700s, you know, it was a tumultuous time. Not much changed other than the 1752 treaty. You know, there's a lot of things that happened even from then, like even a year later, but I'm not going to get into that. And then there's the 1800s. The 1800s, of course, we have the Indian Act, which kind of like dictates us, like, you know, how we operate even today. In the 1900s, we have our schools. We have the 60 schools, the Indian day schools, and the residential day schools. And, you know, I did say the last one did close in 1996. And, you know, it was government led, but it was run by the Catholic churches. And, you know, and we're still feeling these negative effects, the intergenerational trauma. Like, I mean, the abuse, and again, the suicides. But we do have people right now of all kinds and trying to help. So for me, you know, education is extremely important. You know, and it kind of goes back into, again, like, you know, learn, act, engage, and participate. Understand. You know, when I do my presentations, I encourage them to go to a Maui-Omi or a powwow. You know, go check it out. It's free. You'll see the dance and the beautiful regalia being worn, the drumming, stories being shared. Like, it's so beautiful and it's free. Like, there's no alcohol, no drugs, no nothing. Like, you just go and experience it. And I, like, you know, I also say, you know, check out the vendors. Be sure when you do go, to a powwow, you know, bring some money with you. We got excellent, like, people that make crafts and they sell these things. So anyway, take some money. You can buy stuff. You're supporting them as well, and it's actually authentic. Don't buy any dollar store stuff. No dollar store stuff. So, like, go to a powwow. You can get your real items there. So I always encourage people to go powwow, check it out. It's free, and you'll experience it. You'll hear stories, you know. And again, if you have if you want to buy something for that special someone, check out the vendors. But anyway, I always encourage people to just be open-minded, try things. If you don't know, ask. One of the things I get asked a lot, and I'll share one of my experience, some of the questions that I frequently get asked is okay, what is the proper term of, calling you? And it's a legitimate question. If it's genuine, of course, and it is. I usually say, well, Trevor, but right now, Indigenous has been adapted from the federal government in 2016, or 2015 anyway, Indigenous. But for me, I'm Mi'kmaq because we are Mi'kmaqi, and I have to say this. I'm in Nova Scotia. This is part of the Atlantic province. This is Mi'kmaqi, the traditional, ancestral, and unceded Mi'kmaq territory, the land that we never gave up. We never surrendered to it. And it kind of goes with what you mentioned a little bit about Brian, about treaties and stuff like that. Yes, there was a lot of misconception from the non-Indigenous people thinking that, one, that we surrendered our land, and the other was that, where was I going with this? I forgot my second one.
Well, there was also remember when we were talking at the beginning, because when I was in Nova Scotia, you were saying Mi'kmaq, but David Sanipass was saying Mi'kmaq. And I was like, was I saying it wrong? But the first time, I don't know if you know this, I'll share. I share it as embarrassing, but I said Micmac, but that's the derogatory term, and he didn't correct me. I was like, why did you let me do that? You should have just corrected me. He's like, no, it's not what I do. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I would have just kept saying that if you didn't correct me, but you were telling me that there's two pronunciations, and I didn't know that what you just shared, that you didn't give up your land. I would have figured it was some sort of war thing, right? Where you're like, surrender your land or we kill you type of deal. But is this just the certain part of Nova Scotia, or is it all land, or do you know how much?
No, Mi'kmaqi, because we're Mi'kmaq. Well, that's the part where I was getting at. I'm Mi'kmaq, and we are Mi'kmaqi. That's all of Nova Scotia, all of Prince Edward Island, all of New Brunswick, southern part of Maine, or actually southern part of Newfoundland, and northern part of Maine, or South Gas Bay Peninsula. Is pretty much the Atlantic provinces. That's Mi'kmaqi because we had 7 districts in the past. So 7 districts, and so it's so it is like something like the Atlantic province. So that's Mi'kmaqi. The Mi'kmaq. We belong in the Wabanaki Confederacy. There was the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoqua. I hope I'm saying it right because they just changed it recently, and I don't want to say the old word they used to say. Wolastoqua. Penobscot, and there was one other or two, but we belong in the Wabanaki Confederacy, but in a much larger group, I guess we're part of the Algonquin tribe. But Mi'kmaqi is part of the Atlantic province. So with Mi'kmaq, I am Mi'kmaq, the territorial, ancestral, unceded. It's important for me to say that. It's important for everyone, really, especially in Canada or North America or Turtle Island, which is North America. To know your territories, right, and to respect that as well. We had an incident here, and actually, I don't really want to talk about it. We had an incident here with a lawyer for the premier. He mentioned that there's no need to consult the Mi'kmaq people regarding to certain treaty because he believed that we were conquered, like conquer people. I was like, no, we were never conquered. Come on, man, come on, right? No, he got a lot of heat over that, and then I think actually he got booted. I don't know the whole detail, but he's no longer the lawyer for the premier. But he did try to go for that, and I think. We had people raise that, and it was a serious issue. But Mi'kmaqi, that's the land that the Mi'kmaq, we're competing. I can't even speak, but this is our territory. So.
Ah, that's interesting. I didn't know any of that. And so what would you, and for me doing like research in different areas of, Native American history, Mi'kmaq specifically because of David, where would a person go to find out more of real information? Because there's a very famous quote, which I should know off by heart, but it's essentially history is recorded by the winners. And so when history is recorded by the winners and the Europeans are influencing the school system and the Catholic Church is influencing the Native American culture, and then that, there's such an awful thing. How I got into all of this was I wanted to understand how we had war. I didn't understand how there was war on the planet. It just confused me. And it also confused me that people are starving to death. It still confuses me now. I just looked it up the other day. 3 billion people on the planet live on less than $2.50 a day. What the flying F-bomb is going on? We're not allowed to murder somebody one-on-one, but we can suppress an entire culture. We can do cultural genocides all over the place. Then we can drop bombs on people. Who is agreeing to these things and what the heck is actually happening there? That bugs me. And I wish it would stop. So if somebody wants to figure out and learn more about like the real history and they're curious about it, do you have any like people or resources or books or ways? One of your things was to say, go to a powwow or go to an event and ask questions, but is there anything else that you'd recommend for people if they really want to learn more, Indigenous or not?
Yeah. Like, we do
cat?
have. Yeah.
So I thought that was a small child.
Yeah.
It's a nice cat. I remember him. He was nice.
Teddy. Yeah. But we do have a lot of academics, elders. Now, elders, I just got asked this again just the other day. Who can be an elder? An elder is, it doesn't have to be a male. It doesn't have to be, it'll be male or female. And you don't have to reach a certain age, like when you turn 65 and you're an elder. No, that doesn't happen. That doesn't work that way. Elderly, yeah, maybe. But they're very knowledgeable. And I mentioned it earlier, like there are lawyers or scholars or educators, doctors, nurses. Certain elders are they're specialized or very knowledgeable about certain things as well. So not all elders are the same. Some elders may be very knowledgeable about the history or even the treaties. The other elder may be very knowledgeable about the spirituality and traditions. So we have, we have different types of it. Some have like strengths in some areas and some don't. And you need good people, to point you out to that, right? And when you do see an elder, especially asking something, be sure to give something, ideally a tobacco. When you're asking for something, be sure to give them tobacco. Most elders won't even say that they're an elder. If you hear a person that's saying that he's an elder, chances are they're not, because most of the time they'll you'll know. Okay. Not saying that elders are out there that they're saying that they're elders, that they're not. They can't. But most cases, what I know, when I understand what I was told, actually another elder told me this actually. So he said, if you hear an elder saying that he's an elder, he's not an elder. Actually, I could say that because he told me that. But that's what he said. So you can go to those, and I did mention for my I'll focus in Eskasoni. So we have 13 communities. We have 5 communities in Cape Breton or Unamagi. Unamagi is land of the fog. It's Cape Breton. We have 5. Eskasoni being one of them. Eskasoni is one of the largest Mi'kmaq communities in the Atlantic Province, or Mi'kmaq. And all right.
And how many? Just wanted to throw this out there because that's something I learned in Nova Scotia. How many Mi'kmaq were there before the Europeans came over? Was it 7 million?
I think so. Yes, I don't know quite the number, but it was a lot. I
think it was 6 or 7 million, and then after a few hundred years, it was down to a few 100,000. Something as bad as that.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I know.
And that's crazy.
Well, disease was had a lot to do with it as well, right? But Eskasoni, right now, the population is about 5,000, and you know, like, I have to give credit again to the chief. Like he's turning it around. You know, and it's not just the chief. It's not just one person running the whole community. There's a team of them, right? And there's council. There's chief and council, and the council have a great team as well. You know, we have our band managers, and then we have our people, our directors, you know, working in the band office, and then we have our community members, and on these community members we have our elders. So everybody does a part to really you know, help the community. We have excellent volunteers. So if you want to know something or somewhat like about a history, you know, it's so easy to get that right now. I know we have, like I mentioned, we have a lot of educated elders as well that are going to school, and these are some of the young people. They're going for their masters right now, and they got you know, they're very knowledgeable about the culture, and they're very educated, and I love that. Like, I mean, it was always like a rare thing in the past, but now there's like there's so much right now that you see it. Like, and you know, I'm so like thankful for that, because our future, for me, like, especially with them that young, you know, it's so bright. Because we, like, right now, our elders, we don't have that many elders right now, and you know, we need more, and we need more, and we have all these young future leaders, very educated, and some are books. There's some books that are out there. You know, I have a book. I have a book coming out 2021. I signed a contract with Nimbus, which is one of the respected publishers in Atlantic Canada. Nimbus, yay! But anyway, I wrote. Yeah, thank you. So you know, but we do have you know, we do have people that are really educated, and you can ask, because there's a lot of oral history. Like my side of the family, the last hereditary grand chief, he passed in 1918. He was my great grandfather, and I could only go like there's like I put a large amount of hours into the research, and it was only two. Like my great grandfather was John Denny Sr., and then John Denny Jr., and then the natural line of progression was interrupted due to colonization. Instead of like handing it over to his son, they loaned it away before he passed. And you know, that's how the first elected Grand Chief came about, was Gabriel Sillaboy. But then Simon Denny, he was supposed to take on that role, but he ended up taking the Grand Captain role, which is a really important role as well. But anyway, there's a lot of history even from my own family, because a lot of the people that wrote, not necessarily winners, but a lot of people that did write history didn't even quite understand the ways of how we conducted business in some ways. So they kind of like made sense in the way they wrote it. And it didn't give credence or credibility to oral history. and again, a lot of our you know, we have the Grand Council, and a lot of our history, or a lot of the history was documented in this a piece of wapen belt is called. It was quite long, and that disappeared, because we have the Purus, which is the record keeper. He was in charge of it. So any important meetings, anything important at all that to be noted, it was noted on the wapen belt, like from past histories. And he was the only one that could decode it, other than the Grand Chief as well. But he could only one that could decode it and read the histories, and that disappeared. They said that it disappeared sometime in the mid 1900s. That I'm not quite familiar with, so I can't really get into much detail on that, but I do know that is no longer here, and it is gone. And a lot of our history went with that.
Yeah, that's a super important piece of information. When I was talking to, and I'm curious what you think, but when I was talking to Clifford Mahudi, who's a Zuni elder, he was saying it's a 20,000 year history. When I was talking to, you know, cousin David Lone Bear, he said 20,000 year history. And when I was talking to the Mayan elder down in Guatemala, he said 20,000 year history. And they all said it was oral. You know, the European Western is like 2,000 years, Jesus Christ came down. It's like that. That's it is. No. It's like, wait a second, there's pyramids here. You know what I mean? We've dated those over 10,000. So we have these old ancient civilizations. And there must be so much in that oral history. And it's interesting that, you know, when you traced it back, it was to your great grandfather around 1800s or early 1900s, something like that. And so that's really the gap, the 1900s to 2000, of like where things really go missing. Because one of the things that Clifford was saying was that the Smithsonian is not the greatest in his view, because they kind of went around and they stole a lot of the Zuni's items. They had all these spiritual spots. He said, now he's like, I can tell you where we had technology, and I know this. And there's these places, and now they have military bases, or they're closed off, or you can't access them. He's like, these were all our sacred spots. And I went to, when I was in Washington, D.C., I went to I don't know what it's called, like the Indigenous Peoples Museum in Washington, D.C., and David had a really hard time in there. And he was just looking at all this stuff, and he's like, this shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be here. And I know, I guess Donna Augustine, and I don't know if you know her or know.
I do.
Oh yeah, she's interesting. I met her at the Parliament of World Religion. She is very fiery. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, she's been going around and collecting remains that different museums have had, and different places have had. Part of what she's been doing is going around and getting those remains out of these spaces that, you know, they're not supposed to be there. And it's really insulting to her, possibly the Mi'kmaq culture. I don't know for sure. You can maybe speak on that. But the interesting thing is that 20,000 year history, and where did those go? Who took those, and how do we find that missing information? And it's, you know, it's obviously an important part of your history to know, you know, what was all of the past, so how you can know, you know, the future. Because if it is 20,000 years, which it seems to be, there seems to be no evidence where anyone's it's not. What does that mean? What the heck happened 15,000 years ago? Who has that information, right? 17,000, 20,000, like that is some wild stuff. The only groups of people that I've heard speak of that timeline of history are any Indigenous people. And so I'm curious, do you have any leads on how we would find that information?
No, I'm not.
You're ready to oh my goodness.
There's so much, right? There's so much. Even just in my small, like, family alone, like, I mean, there was just so much. And I mentioned, like, you know, like I spent hours, you know, the Nova Scotia archives in Halifax, and speaking with the countless hours I spoke with the elders. Some have passed. My family members who have passed, you know, sitting down and listening to the stories and putting it together. And it was just so much. And I received that title unofficially, that I'm like a historian and a researcher for the Sai family, right? Sai being my mother's side. But it was just so much. And you know, like, I had my full-time job, and then I had my part-time job doing cultural presentations or arm wrestling demonstrations. I love the arm wrestling demonstrations, actually, you know, because it's not just about arm wrestling. I'll just jump on this and I'll jump back. It's not just about arm wrestling. You know, when I do talk, and I did mention earlier, you know, when I do go, I talk about the teachings, keeping your teachings, being respectful, and I talk about my experiences, even with alcohol and drugs, how I overcame that, and I've mentioned this, maneuvering my way around the government, and you know, trying to change it from within now. Right. and you know, we have, you know, great people even working in government right now that are helping, like, or working with us. And where was I going? I'm kind of like, boom, jumping.
Well, part of the history, trying to find, you know, how much history is just within your family.
Arm wrestling, and then I'll jump it right back in that. So it's not just like about, like I said, it's not just like about, like, you know, there's more to it. And then, of course, I show them the proper forms, the techniques, what to do, what not to do, and, you know, show them a little bit, and then off you go. But the history part, the history part, you know, when I talk to my mom, she's just abundant of knowledge, like history, and you know, it's important, you know, to talk to them right now, like to talk to our elders, and you know, unfortunately, in some ways, we're going to have to start writing things down, and I have, and you know, it's we can no longer just sit and talk and then pass it along as much as I would love to, and I am actually. You know, here I am sharing some of the things with you, and I'm trying to throw a little bit here and there. But it is the history itself. Yeah, it's just so much, just so much to even you know, I just get so not overwhelmed because I do so many things, but you know, that small little part of mine. And then again, like just every family has a story, and it just pieces together. And you know, it's unfortunate. Where did that wampum belt go? Right? You know, my grandfather, again, John Denny Jr., my great grandfather, he spoke several languages. He was fluent in Mi'kmaq. He was fluent in English. He was fluent in French. He was fluent in Gaelic. You know, I really respect that person. I never met him. He really did care for his Mi'kmaq people, and he wasn't just a ruler of Eskasoni or governed, not ruler, governed Eskasoni. Like, you know, he had a whole area, the whole, like, I mean, like New Brunswick and Newfoundland and PEI, like, you know, that was his area, and he traveled to places. He would travel to places and meet with some community members if they're having issues with, say, land, right? You know, he'll go and meet them and you know, write letters to you know, to Ottawa. You know, he was a very kind, caring man, and it was really, really intelligent, apparently. So I just want to add that too.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's interesting. Yeah, just one family history and how much knowledge is there. And I have, this is the first I'm hearing about the wampum belt, and that's very, very fascinating piece of information to put towards the wild puzzle. Dude, this has been amazing and super informative. I'm going to ask you two questions because you can kind of choose on which way you go. One, so you can pick either, or you can pick both. It's up to you. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked or that you want to talk about? That's your out. And then the other thing is, do you want to share that story that you told me about the one experience that you had? Some people want to share those, some people don't, but I thought that was a pretty wild experience. And I think that, you know, if you want to share it, I find it interesting to hear those stories from people. So,
okay, which story is that?
The one where you're looking at the backyard and the water.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll share that.
Yeah, because I think, well, I wanted to kind of preface it too, because like, you know, I think a lot of people, David will talk about this anyway, and I'll talk about it too. In my world of like looking at like things that are wild, I think that everybody is looking to connect with like spirit or something in some sort of way, right? And so I do think that wherever you are in life, like whether you're spiritual, whether you're not spiritual, wherever you come from, there are things that happen that seem to be pretty unexplainable. And when you listen to people, usually one person has a story of like, not sure what the heck that was about, but there was like something that I can't really explain. And this story was a pleasure. So yeah, man, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. All right. So the story that Matt is referring was this is after I lost my brother. So before I talk about this, I told Matt this. You know, I'm okay sharing this now, and I'm really great at sharing it. Like obviously now, like, you know, you have a larger audience, so I'm really great with that too. And thank you for bringing this up because I've been sharing it a lot more lately. But in the past, I wasn't. And I was cold, and it was just only. It even took a bit, even just to share that, even say with Chantel, or even with my brother, or even my mother. I didn't really share it. It was just like because I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, like, okay, is it like, am I going crazy? Like, you know, is it something? But luckily, as I mentioned, there was a person that was also there that saw this. But you know, I come from a really close-knit family. You know, I did mention that there were 6 of us. There was 8 of us, like, 2 parents and 6. I have three brothers. I had three brothers and two sisters. Now, my brother passed. My father passed about 3 years ago, but my brother passed about 15 years ago. And this is a story that I'm sharing with you. It was the time that when my brother passed, he was 35 years old when he passed on. And I was like about 27, I think it is. I think it was like 7 years, maybe eight years, actually. He was 8 years older than me. And when he passed, it was devastating, of course. It was unexpected. His health wasn't the best, but it was still unexpected. And so when he passed, it was devastating. It was really heavy for the community and certainly for our family. And I've never ever wished to for anyone to lose their sons or daughters, even though he's my brother. But I just saw how much it hurt for my mother and my father. How much, I could see the pain, and as I was dealing, the death myself, I just couldn't stop, seeing my parents. And anyway, I'll get into the story. So when he passed, of course, I was pretty much drowning myself in alcohol at that time, really, and I was just trying to forget everything, because he and I, we were all close. And it got to the point where, I had to, step back and, really, find myself, I guess. And several months after he passed, I was trying to understand, I guess. I was trying to make sense of it all. And, I still remember seeing the pain of my parents, and I'm not even talking about my siblings. They were devastated. So was I. But it got to the point where, this is the part where that Matt was talking about this story. So he passed in April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. I think it was about 7 months after. 7 months after, I was right by the Bredor Lakes. Bredor Lakes is in Cape Breton or Unamog. So beautiful. I love the lakes. And I was facing south. There's a reason that I'm saying south. I was facing south, and at that time I was having a cigarette. I don't smoke now. I don't even do drugs. Sorry, I never did drugs. I don't drink. I never drank since even 2012. But that's beside the point. I was having a cigarette, and how do I say this? I was having a cigarette facing south, and I just got to the moment was okay. I just felt good. I felt okay. I was picking up my pieces. I was trying to, I was putting alcohol aside, and I was just okay. I'm sure my brother's good wherever he's at. I'm sure he's good. But I also asked, okay, just give me a sign. Please give me a sign. But then I stopped right away, as I told you, Matt. But I stopped right away. As soon as I said, please give me a sign, I stopped. I remember going, okay, never mind. But because I think it was because I was afraid that it might be I might get disappointed. And I said, no, stop, forget it. But the other part is, I just want to know that it was okay. I didn't really need validation. I just knew that it was okay. But going back, okay, no, never mind. And I remember still saying that, never mind. And there was this thing. Now this is the part. There was this thing. It was like a mist. It was about maybe 50 yards in. And it was about maybe 20 feet high up in the air. And it was this big mist. And it must have been about maybe 10 feet wide, 10 feet up. It was just this mist. And it looked like a northern, not northern, northern lights, I guess. And it was because it was doing this weird thing. And I still could see it. Like, I mean, it was about, like I said, about 50 yards, and it was about high. And I remember seeing it, and I remember, okay, like, what's going on? And I'm like looking at it, okay. As soon as I just, like, stop, okay, never mind, I don't want validation or nothing. And that popped up. And I'm like, whoa. Like, and I'm looking at it, and I'm even thinking, okay, that can't be the Northern Lights, because I'm looking, now I'm turning around, because I'm trying to debunk it now, right? Like, I'm trying to debunk it. I'm looking around, okay, I know that's north. I know I'm facing, like, the south, because that's where Big Pond is and stuff. That's where I'm facing. That's the south way. I'm like, and it's moving. I'm like, okay. Like, that's like, okay, right? I'm good. Like, because I was just asking for it, give me a sign. That's okay. I smiled. The person beside me, like, he comes up, he goes, like, whoa. Yeah, so he startled me, like, whoa. I said, what the F is that, right? Like, so you see that too? Because I thought, like, it got to the point where it was just me. And he goes, yes. Man, that's so cool. That's what he said, right? So we were looking, and this thing, it just kind of like vanishes. And he goes, man, that was so freaky. And yeah, I know, right? Like, and I know. But really, I was like, okay, all right. So I don't know. I really don't know. It was just at that moment when I was just asking, and, like, even though I felt good, I felt okay. Like, I accepted. I accepted for weeks even before that, like, or even months. But it was just at that time where I was just, like, feeling okay. Looking outside, it was like around 11 o'clock at night. Looking out the lake, and I just remember looking out there and then asking, just give me a sign. And it said, like I didn't go like this. Just remember, like, taking it back right away. No, never mind. And this thing pops up. I was like, whoa, like, really? Am I really seeing this? Am I really actually seeing this? And I'm looking around, and I could actually try to see exactly how far it is. I was like, okay, this is like really, like, unreal. And I really did at that time look behind me. There was this mountain. There was nothing here, and I'm like, okay, the Northern Lights are usually north way, and I'm okay. This is neat. I don't know what this is. Then I said, okay, and that's the part where, like, what's that? Yeah. But if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have shared that at all. If it wasn't for this guy that like, he was quite surprised of seeing it as well, and that made me feel really better, like, really good. So I saved that for a while. I never shared it anything, and then eventually, like, okay, hey, I shared it with my brother, and then eventually my mother, and then, and just kind of shared. And now, like, I share it a lot, and thank you for asking me that, actually.
Yeah, man, that's a really, really amazing story, and it's really powerful just for all the other elements to it. You know what I mean? Of, like, what you had to go through to get to that point. And you touched on a little bit at the beginning of just having struggling with, like, alcohol, and I think a lot of people struggle with different addictions, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, a lot of different things, and even now our youth and all these new ones are popping up. So to be able to get out on the other side and kind of get I call them universal winks. It's just like, oh my goodness, is this actually happening? It's like, well, what is happening here? It's so great to have a confirmation of somebody on the other side, because it helps be like, okay, I did see that. Like, that was, I think, was real. But yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on the show, and thanks for everything you do. The more I learn about, how you're moving around and all the things, you work super hard, and you're super inspiring to the youth, and you're doing, such great work in so many different areas. Is there anything that you wish that I'd asked, or anything you want to leave the listeners with before we close it out?
No, yes. I was going to say no, but yes. And again, thank you so much for having me. I truly am lucky, with the family behind me. Without their support, I don't think I really could really do anything without them. So I got to give thanks to my family, to my community. I've mentioned Leroy. He's doing a fantastic job. I did mention all the other chiefs. They're doing great as well. The community members, the leaders. Like, I mean, there's a lot of, like, everybody's taking part, and the Indigenous people, the non-Indigenous people, and the elders as well. The elders, and I put them in a, like, I mean, they're so important to our culture, and like, I mean, visit your elder, visit your elder, go see them, talk to them, have tea, listen, they have a lot of stories. Just go and see how they're doing. That's really important. So when I'm in the community, I do go around a lot of communities. When I do go in the community, I try to see an elder from that community when I can. And really, I'm not really asking for anything. I really just want to know how they're doing, what's going on, what's up. And then usually they share their stories. Actually, quickly, today, I was in, where was I? I was in 3 different communities today. I was traveling. Annapolis Valley First Nation. I met with a band manager there, Gerald Tony, elder. He's a member of the Grand Council as well. So he and I sat down. We were just talking, and he shared me a story, and I was so he's a talker. He's a talker. So I only had like a half hour. But as soon as I knew he was a talker, okay, I just it's clear my schedule, okay, because how lucky I am, really, how lucky to actually sit down with an elder and he's sharing stories and then I remember getting okay, no man, please share more, because he apologized. Oh, I got some more. No, I'm good. Tell me. And then he did. He liked it. Even though we never really met, and we bumped each other here and there because he is a member of the Grand Council. I was part of the I sang the honor song of this year's Treaty Day in Halifax, so he saw me there, but we didn't really talk. We didn't really know each other until today. So I was telling him who I am, what I do, and stuff like that. So he was actually thankful and thanking me for doing what I do. So thank you a lot, and Gerald. But I was so glad of hearing his story. He was telling me about, and I'll share this, other than see your elders, which is important. He shared me this, actually, I don't know if I should, yeah. And he shared his bear story, like a bear, this big grizzly bear. And I'll just share a little bit, because maybe someday you'll have him on here. I don't know. But he was telling me that I'll just share this little part of this. He was working in Alaska, and I forgot exactly what he told me what he was doing, but I think it was surveying. And as he was going back, he goes to I don't know how many miles. As he goes back, there were some fresh bear tracks on his trail, and he knew that they were huge and they were fresh because he was just there not that long ago. So he has no weapon nor nothing. He's just him, and he knows about bears and stuff. And so he's kind of okay, this is new, and he's looking around, and the only thing he could think of, because it's just so far off of his camp, he climbs the tree. He knows about grizzlies and stuff like that. Or bears do climb, because he's from Nova Scotia, and he usually dealt with black bears, right? So off he went, and it was really high up in the thing, and he could see this big grizzly coming. Boom, and he goes. He was tearing off these big giant branches, the limbs he called them. He was just tearing them off, and I'm just there, and I'm he's looking at me, and he's like snarling, and then he's boom, shaking it, and then he runs off, and he's about maybe 20, 30 feet, and he goes, okay, he's leaving, and it turns, and he runs for it. He runs for the tree, and then boom, and he said the tree was thick. And he said, I want to say it was really swaying back and forth, but he said it was about 2 feet, okay, 2 feet, which is still panicking. He said, I think he was hoping for me to fall off, right? And then I would have been gone. So he was holding on, right? And then eventually the bear goes off, right? And then he sees, and then anyway, he jumps down, off he goes. He made it. But I'll just share that part, because there's a really interesting ending to it. I'll just share this right quick. He goes,
yeah, I want to know that.
I know. What? The ending, he goes, have you ever, this is what I heard. I said, have you ever heard about bears aren't really good at running when they go downhill? And he goes, yeah, actually I did. Man, that's bullshit. He goes, that's a lie. That doesn't happen. I think they run faster when they go down, right? But I did hear that. That's the thing. I even laughed, right? He goes, no. Anyway, the bear, he was way up in the hill. It was down and was charging. And this bear was big. It was charging full tilt. And of course, he had his weapon then. Long story short, after many shots, we got him. But if it didn't go down, he was close. It was close, and that's what he said. And he was even thinking that, okay, I'm a goner. And he's a goner, but then eventually it did go down. But these are some of the stories that he was telling me, and the way he told it was so perfect, was so great. And here I am, like if I had popcorn, I would have ate popcorn. Like, tell me more, tell me more. And he was stopped, like he shared me some more. And go, no, I don't want to like it. But I could tell like he's really dying to tell me. Like, no, like tell me more. And so he did. So anyway, like what I just want to tell the audience, Indigenous or non-Indigenous people, like, see your elders, like, go see them, tell them how you doing, what's up, if they have any stories, like, they would love to hear them, right? And one thing that I would have loved for you to ask me is really nothing. This t-shirt, it's Ultimate Torque. This Ultimate Torque. I'm selling these t-shirts, and it came out of my own money. I was not really looking for anything. I just really wanted to do something for the youth, right? So I had like several $100. I'm like, okay, do I just like, do I just like have a tournament with this? Like, they don't have to pay anything. I'm doing, or how can I generate this? And with all the things that I do in Chantel, just sell t-shirts, sell t-shirts, and whatever you sell, you could put the money back and buy more t-shirts, and your profits could go and have this arm wrestling tournament for the youth. So, okay, great. So I bought t-shirts, and all the proceeds, well, at least half of it, because the other half I have to buy t-shirts again. The other half will go to the youth arm wrestling event, and it's a money event, and it's free for them to enter, because most times when it's a money event, you have to register, you have to pay for it. This one is not, and it's from 15 to 19 years old. I'm still working on the details, but the half of the proceeds do go to this event. That's Ultimate Torque.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate everything you shared, and I appreciate your work and what you're doing. And like, again, like little small things like that, what you can do to give back to the community, just taking action and just doing something good. The video cut out. You're still good. But where can people find more about you if they want to maybe look into your work? I don't know if you have a website. I know you got Twitter.
Yeah, I do have Twitter, and you can follow me. Is at Sanipass, Sanipass. I'm on Instagram as well. But I'm working on a website actually right now. There's just so many things. People are contacting me via Twitter or even my Hotmail. And my Hotmail is my first and last name, Trevor Sanipass at hotmail.com, e-transfers. But I'm working on the website. There's so many people asking me, because I live in the city, right, in Halifax, and there's not much people, like it's Mi'kmaq History Month, so there's people are really trying to get First Nations knowledge, and it's kind of rare in the city. We do have people, we have great people, but we ain't being pulled all over the place. But I am going to get a website. Hopefully that would be easy, because there's some messages that I get from people that saying that, oh, this person got a hold of me, but I didn't want to give them your number yet. But so there's a lot of people still asking for me to do presentations, cultural presentations, and I'm really excited for that. So my website is we're working on it. I am going to have a website, but not yet. But Twitter for now.
When I get it, I'll put it in the show notes. The last thing I do want to ask, because I almost forgot, but do you want to say anything in Mi'kmaq before you go? Like, one of the things I think, talking to Brian and a lot of other people, is there's not a lot of people that can still speak the traditional native languages, and I think it's important to do what we can to keep those. So do you want to share anything in that language?
Oh, absolutely. I do read, write, and speak the Mi'kmaq language. So I'll just say, and I'll translate it actually for you. Wala din Matt, nandil ginasti la wala ilwistul ochit and then dilo di no la sa wildas is going to want lanik demi with the bexi nuchinen or jisa amawo the lucida chan in junior wildas is going to want dan la ilnoe gadi the louis me mig magi minasa I get in with work minasa mina I get in with work la amigo Thank you, Matt. I did say I'm glad that I had the opportunity to talk to you about some of my culture, and I talked a little bit about where I come from, the community I belong to, and my that I'm the direct descendant of the last hereditary Grand Chief John Denny Jr. and Mi'kmaq, the traditional, ancestral, and unceded Mi'kmaq territory. So I was glad that I said those to you. So that's my land acknowledgement to you all.
Awesome, man. Well, Trevor, thanks so much, man. Thanks for everything you do. It's a pleasure to just know you and watch all the things you're doing. So I'm excited for your book and for you to get a website and just keep doing all the things you're doing, man. So thanks for. Go ahead.
Arm Nation. You can watch Arm Nation. You can Google it. Actually, there's a game app. Our Nation game app. There's a Trevor Sanipass character.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you know you made big time, when you became the app. Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you again.
See you guys. Thanks for watching.